Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Gridiron Glory with Will and Tad. This is an NFL show where we cover all 32 teams in the NFL, and we're proud to have coverage of every single team focusing on all the team stories and their highlights. So today we'll be getting going talking about the Las Vegas Raiders traveling to LA to face the Chargers in their week one NFL contest to open the season. And it was an impressive showing from the Chargers, the home team. They win 22-10. Justin Herbert, their quarterback, not too flashy, only 144 yards on 17 of 26 passing, one touchdown, no interception. So he didn't put up the biggest stat line, but he definitely put his team in position to win the game, and that they did. One of the star contributors, especially in the second half, was new running back J.K. Dobbins with his 10 carries for 135 yards and a touchdown, a very impressive stat line. And I will say it's just great to see J.K. Dobbins on the football field again after the many injuries he's suffered the past few years. He's had ACL problems, among other things, and it's great to see him back on track, making big plays like we know he can. A very positive sign there. Another positive sign for the Los Angeles Chargers is the play of rookie receiver Ladd McConkey out of Georgia with his 5 catches for 39 yards and a touchdown in his NFL debut. Great to see for him breaking out so early, and we'll just see if he can keep the momentum rolling as he gets going. A very positive start there. Of course, you have a lot of veterans on this defense, guys like Joey Bosa with 7 tackles and a sack. You have Khalil Mack. He had 1.5 sacks, a tackle for loss. He defended a pass. He had 2 quarterback hits. He's a guy that's out there. He can just be a veteran leader. He's not the same player he was 5 years ago, but he's still a guy that can go out there, can wreck a game, and he's a guy you just have to plan around. So a very impressive showing from the Chargers defense, holding the Raiders to just 10 points and only 3 points after the first quarter. So a lot of credit goes there. Guys like Derwin James Jr., Asante Samuel, you just got guys out there that are just making plays. And I do also want to specifically shout out Joe Alt, their first round draft pick offensive lineman. Had a very big opening assignment going up against Max Crosby for the Raiders, one of the best defensive linemen in the league, and he didn't allow any sacks to Max Crosby, and that's a very impressive start to the career for Joe Alt, who's one of the most fundamentally sound linemen in the draft, and now he's looking to make his name in the league as well. A lot of young, talented linemen for the Chargers with him, and also Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern, who they drafted a few years ago. So a positive start for the Chargers there. And then for the Raiders, I mean, you're just having a lot of questions there. You only can muster 10 points against the Chargers, and I'm sure they were hoping for a better output in the debut in Las Vegas for Gardner Minshew. 25 of 33, 257, a touchdown, 1 interception, and he also lost a fumble. So, I mean, the stats look fine, but the 2 turnovers, that's something you'd like to see go down. But yeah, they just couldn't get much established. They couldn't establish a running game, and I think that was part of their problem. I mean, your lead running back is Zamir White, 13 carries for 44 yards, and overall you only rushed for 71 yards for the game. So I'd have to ask, what's your take on the Raiders running game?
Yeah, the Raiders running game. My take on the Raiders in general. I mean, but in a professional sense, yes. No. Look, I just kind of feel really bad. I mean, you brought up the numbers, you brought up the stats for the most part. I kind of want to speak now on a more of a story standpoint, that being Devontae Adams, right?
Yeah.
You really feel for a guy like him. I don't know if any of you guys out there watched the receiver documentary in the offseason that came out on Netflix, but I ended up watching all 8 episodes of this thing. And, I'm as I'm watching it, I'm really thinking about just like, the presence that Devontae Adams, a guy like Devontae Adams brings with that leadership in that locker room. I mean, he's a really tough, resilient wide receiver. He honestly, does get hit quite a bit. And I mean, throughout this, documentary, we're talking like, he's mentioning the frustrations of like his quarterbacks, not getting the ball enough. And then like when he does get the ball, not being placed in the correct routes and everything to where he just gets hit. Like, he catches the ball, just boom, just getting hit instantly. So, definitely voiced his and vocalized his frustration. So yeah, probably I'm thinking his frustrations continue here. And that's something that nobody wants to really talk about or bring up, So Devontae Adams, I feel for you. I'm sorry that you are stuck on such a horrible team. I do mean that professionally. I really do. But nonetheless, yeah. I'm kidding, but yeah. No, I'm serious. No, I'm so serious because this franchise,
Right.
outside of Devontae Adams and Max Crosby, I mean, Gardner Minshew, like that's your guy. That's your long-term guy. That's who you want to go with is Gardner freaking Minshew. Like 25 of 33, only a touchdown and interception. He gets sacked 4 times and that goes to show you that that's a pretty shaky offensive line to begin with. And I mean, outside of Devontae Adams, who is on this offense? I mean, Demir White, iffy. Alexander Madison, it's like nothing is really popping out to me here. I mean, Alexander Madison did get that 1 touchdown, but this was not the same Raiders team that whooped this same Chargers team because it's not the same Chargers team as last year. It's not the same Raiders team as last year. I mean,
Right.
this is a Raiders team that's I'm scratching my head. I'm concerned for Devontae Adams. Like, Devontae, get out of Las Vegas. Come wear the orange and blue. We'll take care of you. I would love it if Devontae played for the orange and blue. But as far as the LA Chargers, yeah, Jim Harbaugh, right? Jim Harbaugh, a lot of people are talking about the backstories of Jim Harbaugh and obviously coming off of the allegations and everything, the sanctions that were going to be imposed on him at Michigan University, coming off of winning a national championship there. And as you have mentioned before, Jim Harbaugh, he wins everywhere he goes. And he once again showed that, hey, I'm Jim Harbaugh and I can turn a group of questionable guys into a solid competitive football team because we were talking about in the offseason with the inexperience of these Chargers wide receivers. And I'm looking at these numbers and it's like Lad McConkey, you mentioned, a touchdown there, 38 yards out of Quentin Johnson, Hayden Hurst, 33 yards, stuff not super flashy, but it's like, wow, Jim Harbaugh is actually, it seems like he really did his homework in the offseason with trying to get these guys coached up and everything like that. So shout out to Jim Harbaugh. I do certainly firmly believe that Justin Herbert can be a strong fit in a Jim Harbaugh system. So going forward, it's definitely going to be very interesting to see what the Jim Harbaugh era entails in Los Angeles. And for the Raiders, I already mentioned the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a disappointing start to the season for the Raiders. I mean, I'm sure they were hoping they would compete a bit more. And I will say they were in the game until the fourth quarter, but in the end, I mean, their issues showed. I mean, they, like you said, they just don't have a whole lot of playmakers on this offense outside of Adams. I will give some credit to their rookie tight end Brock Bowers out of Georgia in his debut, 6 catches for 58 yards, a very solid debut for the top tight end in the draft. And he's a guy that I believe can make a name for himself in this offense, in an offense that, as we've mentioned, devoid of quality options. But all in all, like, I mean, you're looking at the Raiders, and I mean, only 10 points against the Chargers. And like you said, last year the Raiders were in the 60s against the Chargers. I mean, but this ain't the same old Chargers. I mean, it looks like Jim Harbaugh, like you mentioned, really coaching up the defense, especially. I mean, the offense, I mean, only 144 yards for Justin Herbert, but it seems they focused on making the plays you have to make to win a football game. And they
Especially
did.
guys like Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Real quick, I'm curious, what is your take on Khalil Mack being added to this Chargers defense in what I mentioned, a Jim Harbaugh system?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on it a bit earlier when I was mentioning that he might not be the same talent that he once was. Like, he might not have the same like athleticism as he did in a younger age, but he's still a veteran. He's a guy that can make plays. He's in the right spot. He's a guy that's going to do what he can to put your defense in a chance to be successful, and he certainly did that today. He was out there, he was making plays, and I mean, he did more than enough to keep the Las Vegas Raiders at bay. I mean, and I think we also have to credit Puna Ford, who had the interception for the Chargers, the one interception in the game, and that's a very big play for the veteran out of Texas, Puna Ford.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I was absolutely also impressed by the J.K. Dobbins showing here for LA.
Certainly.
J.K. Dobbins, still really good at football. I mean, this just proves that coaching really does matter. Like, I mean, this was a Chargers team that had only 5 wins last year, and I think things are going to go great with Jim Harbaugh in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would say that I think he'll have a chance to be successful. And I mean, we certainly don't know how this year's going to go off of one game, but I mean, there could certainly be.
It's a flashy, great start, if anything else.
Yeah, it's a great start. I still see this as being a season with a lot of ups and downs. I mean, it'll be a kind of a topsy-turvy season for the Chargers. You'll have some performances like this, and you'll have some performances that might leave you scratching your head a bit, but just a very positive way to start it for a team that had a lot of question marks coming in, but they get the job done at home against a division rival.
Absolutely. So a very fun game of football. Oh, actually, not really. It was kind of a mid game of football, but a game of football that took place. 22
All
to 10.
Football is good football, in my opinion. Football is good football.
You know, you're right, Tad. You're right. I mean, why have our name be the Gridiron Glory? I mean, we just, I mean, all football is good football. I mean, right. But it wasn't like the kind of, I don't know.
It wasn't flashy.
It wasn't flashy football. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, so next week the Chargers go on the road, and it'll be an interesting game there at Carolina. And then for the Raiders, they go on the road and are going to be playing a very angry Baltimore team who lost by a toe, quite literally. So I don't like the Raiders' chances in that game at all. Going up against what's going to be a very angry Baltimore team in their home opener.
So, yeah, I mean, it is the NFL, and anything can happen on any given Sunday, but you'd have to feel pretty good about Baltimore's chances, like you said.
Yeah, so it'll be very fun to see what happens there. Yeah, there you have it. Raiders, Chargers. Chargers win 22 to 10. Jim Harbaugh now 1-0 as the Chargers head coach. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Be sure to comment down below. Let us know what you think about Raiders and Chargers. And be sure to stay tuned into the Gridiron Glory, where we cover all 32 teams.